Okay, guys, so here today we're going to take a look back at the infamous 1981 Mr. Olympia, one of the most hotly debated moments in all of bodybuilding history. After the so-called Sydney affair of 1980, where Arnold Schwarzenegger came back out of retirement to secure his seventh Olympia title in highly controversial fashion, the IFBB's very reputation was on the line. Would it bounce back and recover from the previous year's debacle? Or would bodybuilding's most prestigious organization repeat its mistake and plunge the sport even further into the depths of deceit and depravity? As you can probably surmise from the title, they blundered yet again in a major way. In fact, this contest would prove to be even worse than the scandal that preceded it. It was so bad that I would not hesitate to say that 1981 was the worst outcome in Mr. Olympia history, bar none. Say what you will about Arnold in 1980, we all agree he was a far cry from his best. But he still looked the part of a champion and possessed several impressive attributes that even his more conditioned competitors could not surpass. Say what you will about Dorian in 97, but again, his back and calves and overall size were still world class. Even Jay in 2007, while he missed the mark, was still a complete bodybuilder in his own right and had some outstanding body parts and poses that were hard to top. Or take your pick of any number of controversial results during Ronnie's reign or Phil's, none compared to the magnitude of this travesty in 1981. So let's take a closer look at this contest and what exactly made it so outrageous. First of all, we have to start with the champion, Franco Columbu. Now, contrary to some exaggerated accounts, he wasn't terrible. He was actually a very good bodybuilder on that day. He exhibited dense and thick muscularity, especially in his pecs and back. His arms were huge and full, his chest showcased incredible depth, punctuated by his signature horizontal split. His lats hung super low as ever, and his abs were hard and well-defined. So Franco did bring a lot of positives to the table. But did he deserve to win? Hardly. Columbu had two glaring flaws this year: a severe case of gynecomastia in his right pectoral, and next to zero separation in his thighs. Either one of these flaws should have automatically prevented him from winning, but to have both together and still be crowned the victor, that positively reeks of political interference. Let's go through some comparisons and see who truly deserved to come out on top. The two gentlemen beside him here, Danny Padilla and Tom Platts, should have led the way. In most people's eyes, these were your rightful top two. Padilla, while small of stature at only around 5'2", was shredded to the bone and had perfect shape and proportions. His muscle bellies were uniformly long and full, as you can note here the sweeping bulk of his triceps and the pleasing roundness of his shoulder. Add to that his tight waistline and a nice set of pecs, and I think it's fair to say Danny owned this pose, based on this picture anyway. Platz, on the other hand, wasn't quite as sharp, but he did boast the most quality mass of anybody on stage that day, especially in his world-famous legs. He was perhaps the only man of this era to showcase any significant sweep through the hamstrings. Here you can see Tom clearly outmuscling the shorter Franco and Danny in the front lat spread. It's actually unbelievable how much he was able to improve his upper body compared to the previous year. It appeared as though he'd literally gained about 15 pounds of solid muscle from the waist up alone. So while his legs were still dominant, his pecs and arms and back no longer lagged behind to such a degree, so he was more balanced than ever. Here you can see him absolutely destroying Franco in the ab and thigh. True, Franco's abs are very good, even a little more symmetrical than Platz's, and certainly his taper through the lats is better. But downstairs, it's no contest. Platz's feathered quads simply obliterate him. In the Symmetry Round, we can see Franco standing between Padilla and Dickerson. And to be fair, one thing Franco was very smart about in this show was that he always kept his body tense and flexed. Other contenders tended to relax a little more, and so Franco often displayed a higher degree of muscularity. But note, once again, the utter lack of separation in his legs. And turned to the side, Franco didn't fare so well. His arms now looked mediocre compared to Tom's and Danny's. His posture was a little off, and his thick development wasn't displayed to his advantage. And from the rear, he faltered, despite having one of the best backs of his time. Tom Platts, who up until this point was never known for his upper body, actually outshined Franco now. Tom's back appeared bigger, wider, and even more defined. And Danny and Dickerson were noticeably more conditioned than Franco as well. From the front once more, we can see Franco's impressive upper body thickness, replete with rippling abs and chest striations, but it's hard to deny Danny's superior symmetry and aesthetics. Try as he might, Franco couldn't seem to coax even a single line of separation out of his lackluster quads. Former bodybuilder turned magazine writer Rick Wayne rather hilariously described Franco's legs as resembling a pair of overstuffed sausages. On the contrary, Padilla's legs were sliced and diced from hip to knee and more shapely to boot. Here's another look at Platts and Franco, and while the Golden Eagle's pecs couldn't quite match the thick development of the Sardinian strongman's, at least he didn't have swollen breast tissue surrounding his nipple. The fact that arguably Franco's best body part was marred in such a way only served to hurt him all the more, as suddenly what was once one of his greatest strengths was now unforgivably flawed. Roy Callander was another bodybuilder in top-notch shape that night. He brought an excellent blend of round, eye-popping muscle and crisp definition. His upper body would have easily been among the best on stage. And his quads had incredible detail and separation. His only major weak point were his high calves, a body part which, unlike today, actually counted for something back then. In my mind, these were your rightful top three this year: Danny Padilla, Roy Callander, and Tom Platz. I personally would have had Platz as the winner, Padilla in second, and Callander in third. Platz was allegedly the favorite of the audience as well, though it would have been perfectly acceptable to have Danny first and Platz in second also. And Chris Dickerson should have probably been fourth, not second. Interestingly enough, the head judge of the contest, Roger Schwab, actually stated this exact order and made it known on record that Franco should have placed no higher than fifth. In fact, Franco potentially could have been upset by sixth-place finisher Josep Wilcox as well. Pictured here in the center, Wilcox was another bodybuilder who brought better conditioning from head to toe and had less flaws than Franco. So, if it's so clear-cut that the top three should have been some combination of Platz, Padilla, and Callander, and even the head judge agrees, then why did the results pan out the way they did? How the hell did Franco manage to come out on top here? The immediate knee-jerk reaction is simply to cry foul and state that the show was rigged. Arnold was the promoter after all, and we all know Franco was Arnold's best friend and longtime training partner. So it's natural to assume that Arnold must have fixed the contest in his favor. But from everything I've read and heard from sources behind the scenes, this wasn't the case. The show wasn't fixed, there was no predetermined outcome guaranteeing Franco's victory. What this botchery really came down to is two things. Number one, a flawed scoring system, and number two, a couple of incompetent judges skewing the results. So here's the official scorecard. You can immediately notice that just like in 1980, they used a point system where the higher the total, the better, which is completely opposite to today where the winner is the one with the lowest score. The reason for this is that, much like today, the show consisted of 3 rounds: the Simmetry Round, the mandatory comparisons, and the individual posing routines, with a perfect score for each round being a 20. But unlike today's ranking system, there was nothing preventing the judges back then from tying multiple bodybuilders with the same score. Theoretically, if he thought all the competitors were equally flawless, he could give them all straight 20s. The problem with this point system is that certain competitors could kind of sneak their way up the ranks undeservedly. The judges might find it difficult, for instance, to assign a low score to a former Mr. Olympia legend like Franco Columbu. So, even if they didn't score him the highest, all it would take would be for 1 or 2 judges to award Columbu perfect 20s, and suddenly he'd find himself in first. Going back to the scorecard for a moment, we can see that this is pretty much exactly what happened. Franco received perfect scores from the Italian judge Franco Fassi. And how suspicious is it that your fellow countryman of the same first name awards you the highest possible score? And also Doug Evans from Wales. American judge Jim Mannion and the Danish judge also had him just 1 point off a perfect score at 59. So for some reason, Franco scored extremely high across the board. Only the Belgium judge gave him a reasonable score of 54, ranking him below Dickerson, Platz, Callander, Padilla, and Wilcox. This was seemingly the only judge on the panel then who could leave preconceived notions at the door and judge the show objectively rather than relying on a competitor's reputation or past contest history to determine their placing. Unfortunately, his score for Franco would ultimately be scrapped, canceling out with one of the 60s since, as usual, they eliminated the highest and lowest scores for each bodybuilder when adding up the totals. One questionable fact is that none of the judges rated Danny Padilla very highly, when many people nowadays, and even among the audience at the show at the time, thought that he was the obvious winner. Certainly it was between him and Platz. In an illuminating interview with head judge Roger Schwab, who for some reason didn't get a vote yet still held the title of head judge. And somebody please explain that to me, because I don't see how this guy can be labeled a judge if he's not actually scoring the competitors. But anyway, Mr. Schwab was there administrating at the show and actually tallying the votes, and he says that he knew they were in for a disaster when he realized Franco was going to win. He also mentioned that a possible explanation for the lack of love directed towards Danny Padilla was because this was the first time Danny had actually hit his peak. Because in the past, he would typically come in about 20 or even 30 pounds heavier and not nearly as conditioned. So this sudden transformation would have caught a lot of the judges off guard, and perhaps that's why they weren't sure how to place him. On the other hand, a perennial favorite like Chris Dickerson, who could always be relied upon to come in shape, would have received the reverse treatment, because not only had he placed runner-up to Schwarzenegger a year prior, he'd also managed to gobble up multiple Grand Prix titles along the road to the '81 Mr. Olympia, so his momentum at this time was through the roof. Not only that, but his posing was said to be exceptional. Roy Callander would unfortunately fall into a similar boat as Padilla, having never received much exposure in the magazines, certainly not compared to people like Franco or Dickerson, so the judges wouldn't have been as familiar with his physique, he wouldn't have been on their radar as much, and therefore they would have been less likely to favor him. Ditto for Tom Platz at this point in his career. After '81, he'd go on to become one of the most high-profile and beloved bodybuilders on the planet. But coming into the show, he was really only known for his legs, and not considered a complete bodybuilder or a serious contender for the title. But the truth of the matter is that Platz was probably in the very best shape of his life. The year after, he would tear his right bicep, leading up to the 1982 Mr. Olympia, so unfortunately his physique would never quite be the same after that. But Platz took his loss in stride like a true sport, and was one of the only other bodybuilders to congratulate Franco on his win. In fact, even the audience was having none of it. A fierce chorus of boos rained down on the stage when Danny Padilla's name was called in fifth. The booing continued as Callander was proclaimed fourth, and then reached a deafening crescendo when Platz was declared third. When Dickerson was announced second, signifying that Franco had won, the venue veritably erupted into pure pandemonium. People started throwing things onto the stage, and neither Joe Weider nor Arnold wanted to step into the line of fire, so it fell to Ben Weider to present the trophy to Franco Columbu. Most of the celebratory pictures, including this one with his wife, were actually taken backstage to avoid the hostility of the frenzied crowd. So certainly, the fans in attendance thought that this was a monumental act of injustice. Indeed, this competition has been dubbed the greatest booing contest of all time, and I, for one, could not agree more. So that's my review of the 1981 Mr. Olympia. Despite the prevailing opinion, which regards 1980 as the most controversial Olympia ever, I would say that this show was actually even worse. Because unlike Arnold the year before, Franco in '81 didn't have any real redeeming traits or qualities. He wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the most complete or conditioned. He certainly wasn't the best poser. So why did he win? There's just no conceivable reason that he should have placed ahead of Tom Platz or Danny Padilla, which makes this, unequivocally, the single greatest robbery in Mr. Olympia history. Thanks for watching, everybody, and remember to leave a like and subscribe for more if you enjoyed. Just like my last review of the 1980 contest, I really spent a lot of time and effort researching in preparation for this video, so hopefully you appreciate it. The main article I referenced was from Iron Man magazine, along with the podcast interview of Roger Schwab, courtesy of John Hansen. The links to these sites will be provided in the description in case you're interested. But in any case, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.